hope for loosening marijuana policy may have gone up in smoke. President Trump and former President Biden had supported bringing changes to federal marijuana laws, leaving open the possibility of rescheduling it from the most restrictive class of drugs. But efforts seem to have ground to a halt. Biden's DEA proposed rescheduling it in May of 2024, and while a hearing was dated for January 2025, that went nowhere after Biden's loss. Meanwhile, the current Trump White House released its drug policy blueprint, but there was no mention of cannabis. In fact, Trump nominated an anti-pot guy to head up his DEA.
Per the New York Times, agency leaders who opposed any loosening of restrictions thwarted Biden's goal. Sources now say that under Trump, cannabis reform is as good as dead. It remains a Schedule I drug, the same level as fentanyl, cocaine, and meth. There is public support for loosening marijuana restrictions. A recent Pew Research poll found 57% of adults said that it should be legal for medical and recreational use.
Interesting topic, this one, Stephen. So, I mean, it is fascinating to me how much more popular the idea of at least some loosening of the marijuana laws has become. And then also you have this clash between federal law and state law. I know it's a huge issue here in DC, where the District of Columbia's laws are pretty lax or permissive, or whatever term you want to use. But of course the federal law isn't, and a lot of buildings here are federal government property, and so you can smoke on the street, but you can't smoke on the property.
I'm sure Janine Pirro will love that. She will be very easy on pot in DC. But no, I mean, the issue of its support, you know, it's 57% support medical and recreational, and then if you include the people who just support medical, that number jumps up closer to 88% in net. There's this very small sliver of people who remain, who think that it should be, you know, completely kept at the fringes of society. There's just a need for a change here, and rescheduling a drug is not the same as legalizing it, forcing it on the American people. It allows more research to occur on the substance. It allows health authorities to actually more calibrate carefully their dosages that they're giving to medical patients. Like, we're basically stuck here in a situation where we're not responding to the science around marijuana anymore, just political inertia.
Right, and that of course has been a problem with drug policy generally, which has been the prevalence or the predominance of kind of hysteria about it sometimes. I mean, I don't think there's been hysteria around marijuana for maybe a few decades at this point, but you can look back at all those sort of comic warnings, you know, that weed is going to come and destroy your kids and take everyone over. I don't think anyone really sees that now, or it's a very small proportion of people.
And that's because the false equivalence between pot, marijuana, and being on the same schedule as heroin, people know that that is not authentic to the levels of risk that we're talking about with marijuana. For me, I'm looking at this story and going, one, Trump has misled his voters. He made a play for young voters on this issue right before the election, saying that he was going to continue this pursuit and that he was going to pursue rescheduling this drug. Matt Gaetz, who spent some time, he was going to be at DOJ, he has spoken to the New York Times and said that Trump's teetotaler tendencies, which is a great thing, by the way, the guy somehow is sober and does not engage in anything that Matt Gaetz says alters your state of mind. He believes that you just have to be completely cognizant at all times, and he resents any sort of drug or substance that might skew people's judgment in public. And that's something that he's just against, which means he lied to his voters. And then the second point is that DOJ is a tool of the administration, whoever wins the election, and then the DEA is supposed to answer to them. And the DOJ has directed them to change policy, and the DEA is just gumming it up and not letting it happen. Who do they answer to?
Right. No, I think those are all fair points, including the idea that there has been this promise of rescheduling it for some time and nothing has happened. I was startled in researching this story to realize that marijuana is actually scheduled in a more strict way than fentanyl or methamphetamine. I mean, that seems crazy and a very bad fit for where we are as a country right now.
Yeah, there's just nothing happening. I mean, the American people have been pretty clear on this issue. When they were actually pursuing this rescheduling, the Justice Department solicited comments from everyday people across the country. They received 43,000 letters on this issue, which is way higher than average for citizen comment on anything that happens within the agencies, with roughly 70% voicing support for a reschedule or a reassessment of marijuana as a drug policy in the United States. And the government still just doesn't respond to the will of the people on these things. I, for one, am not like a huge personal fan of legalized marijuana or even decrim. I don't like smelling it on my back porch from the neighbors in Virginia where, you know, there are less consequences now for that kind of thing. But this is not the kind of thing where the government should be ruining people's lives and also cracking down on research on this substance so that we can actually make it more effective for medical marijuana patients.
Sure. No, I take all those points, and I think there are pretty clearly established benefits, particularly in the treatment or the alleviation of symptoms of multiple sclerosis and things like that. So I don't think that's really in any doubt. One final point just before we go, you mentioned President Trump's personal views of drug use, which extend also to the use of alcohol. I am critical of him in many, many ways. If you ever see the clip of him talking about the brother of his who died from alcoholism, it's genuinely very effective,
very personal.
and a softer version of the president than we normally see. In any event, shocking new documents obtained by the New York Times show the executive branch infighting over Kilmar Abrego Garcia. We'll discuss that next.